Here are 12 great ways to save money for the new year. I'm Brandy, and this is Making It My Own DIYs. We've got thrift flips, and it is a compilation video of 12 of the best ones and my favorite ones that have been done. So watch and enjoy. Thank you. Welcome back. First project is a hanging candle lamp. So this is a thrift piece that I picked up. It's got a little damage, but we can work on it. Plus it's got a little orangey undertone, and I'm gonna work on that a bit, show you how you can change that shiny stuff up. It's about 16 inches, just to give you an idea. I'm going to use the tubing that came with a print that I recently did on a video. Some antiquing wax and a brush. Chippy brush, of course. Sanding products, so you can use a sanding block, a finger sander, or a sanding machine. Also going to use some of this wire, and it is in a silverish color, but it really won't matter because you're not going to see it. Some lights that will fit in that tube. My wire cutters. Any type you have will work. And then this is the skeleton from a lampshade. I'm going to take this curtain ring and put this on top because we need to change the shape. I'm going to just take off the little hanging piece here. I get these pieces at the thrift store in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. I love the wooden ones because they are multi-purpose for a lot of things. I'm going to add some E6000 right on those little cross pieces. And you see, if we left this way, then we would have, once we started wrapping it, we would have almost a triangular or very angular shape, and I want this to maintain a more of a rounded look. So you'll see what I mean as we start to work on this. I'm going to give that just a few minutes for the E6000 to cling a little bit, then I'm going to gently flip it over and just reinforce it with some Gorilla Glue on the back. I don't want this to come apart because we're going to be pulling quite a bit on those pieces. Now this is going to round this all out. It's going to change it. So we're not going to be worried about that inner ring anymore. We've now changed the contour of this lamp to go between the wooden piece and that bottom metal piece of the frame. I'm going to be cutting little pieces of this wire to go around in between the original 3 cross pieces that we have there. So those pieces that go up and down, I'm going to add more of those by just creating some with this wire. I'm going to try to center it between each one of the little sections, and there are 3 sections, so we're going to do 3 wires. I'm going to pull it up and then twist it around both the wire on the inside and the wooden piece. This is going to give a little more security also to that wooden piece that's on top to make sure that nothing pops loose when we are tugging around on this, putting on the wires. I just chose to start on the bottom, but you could probably start on the top if you wanted to do that. It really doesn't matter. And I'm trying to make sure that I've got it centered pretty much right between the bars that go up and down that are original to the skeleton of this lamp piece. Now if you have a little piece like this, all you have to do is peel the paper off or the covering off. Cut it off, get some scissors. This happened to have been paper, and I just peeled it all off. Same thing here. Now you don't have to find pieces like this at the thrift store, and you don't have to go to the store to get them. You may have perhaps an old ceiling fan that might have had something like this on it that you could take apart. You can repurpose it. You can pick up stuff like this at a garage sale maybe. Okay, so now we have our extra section. So now we have 6 little pieces that are going to support when we put our lampshade together. So I'm going to take some of this satin ribbon. You really can use any type of ribbon you have, but I don't believe I would go any thinner or thicker with that. I'm going to use some of this beautiful paper that comes from Dollar Tree. And that's going to be the outside, but this is going to be the inside framework. I'm using white here because, for one, we don't want that contact paper that we're going to use on top. We don't want to be able to see what is underneath it, so I don't want to use a black. Also using white so that the light that shines through here, now this is going to be more of a mood lighting. This is not super bright, okay? Not super bright. If that's what you're looking for, this might not be the project that, you know, that you're looking for, but to me with Victorian decor, everything is sort of moody and darker anyway, more rich and warm looking. So we're going to try to keep that look up by following that style. Now I started my ribbon on the inside. I went ahead and cut it off the spool because we're going to have to loop up and through the bottom on the inside and then through the top and wrap around. There's 18 feet on each one of these spools of ribbon. I used about a spool and a half. When I wrap, I'm going to get the top pieces overlapping closer together, and the bottom I'm going to space out a little bit where they're just barely touching. This is going to give us the length that we need to go all the way down and around the frame without having everything go sideways. I'm going to try to keep it at the same shape. So you see what I'm doing here? You see how the shape is? The ribbon is tighter at the top or closer together, overlapped on the top. And then as you go outward toward the bottom, it's just barely touching one another. See? And we're going to do this all the way around. This is how it looks when it's done. And you're just going to cut it off when you get back to your original spot and then glue it under. I'm going to grab that contact paper. Oh my goodness, y'all. Too much coffee? Maybe not enough. I'm going to trim this down. And there's no exact way for me to tell you how to cut a cone. If you know another technique other than just rolling it around, then feel free to do it this way. But this has just worked for me. I've done a lot of Tussie Mussies, and they are also Victorian. So you can find those in my videos on my channel. But the routine is pretty similar, only you're using that lampshade as your kind of like a template to know how big you need to cut it. And as I roll it, as long as it overlaps, I'm just going to be cutting off excess that I don't think I'm going to need. And I added a little piece of tape to hold it in place while I trim it down. So I'm just trimming this bottom down, and I'm going to cut as close as I can to that ribbon by just laying my scissor or my shears on the edge to cut it straight once I get to a comfortable place. I'm going to do the same thing on the top. On the top, I'm just going to cut down into it and then lay the scissors down and just go around. And I was afraid I might accidentally cut off too much, so I'm just trimming a little at a time as I go to make sure that I don't do that. Once I get the right length on here, I'm going to go ahead and peel the backing off, because we've removed all that excess, right? And you see even here it's kind of sticking a little bit. I'm just going to fix that, not a problem. We're just going to keep going. The contact paper is kind of thin. I mean, it's not made for upholstery, obviously, so you know it's not going to be super thick, but the print on this is so beautiful, and I've used it before in other projects, so I know the results you can get from this, and it's so pretty. All right, so I'm just going to cut this down a little bit. And you should always cut away from yourself. I don't know what I was doing on this day. You know, you have those days. You're just kind of off the game a little bit. I was kind of off the game a little bit. It seemed like every project that I did that day was giving me fits. So, you know, just do the best you can and work with it. I'm going to lay it down on here, and I'm going to wrap it around. So now you understand why we put that ribbon underneath, so that this contact paper has something firm and solid to stick to. So that's what I'm doing. I'm pressing down slightly as I roll it over to make sure the contact paper overlaps onto itself to hold it in place, and that it is sticking down on the ribbon fabric underneath. So now we can trim it up exactly, nice and clean on the top and the bottom. Careful not to cut your ribbon now, because that's your framework. We don't want to mess up anything that we took all that time to do. Just make it nice and clean, and then we'll do the same thing on the bottom. I have never done a lampshade before, and I'm not professional with it, so you know, This is just the way I did it. You know, my videos are for inspiration. I want to show you how you can do things that are nice and bring you joy in your home, but you know, where you don't have to go to a store and spend a fortune. You would not believe some of the prices of the things that I see offered in stores compared to something you can do yourself at home. And I absolutely love this little candle lamp, and I hope that you're gonna to love it too. So stay with me here. Now I'm going across my original framework underneath and pressing down just to make sure that everything stays in place. And what a lovely little shade this is. I like this very much. Using a little cool temperature glue, I'm going to go around the edges to seal the little space that is between the contact paper and the fabric. You can skip this part if your contact paper is something that is a lot more sticky than this, or perhaps a little thicker that you can work with. Yes, you could, if you wanted to, wrap this paper around the top and into, just kind of tuck it in, but I don't want it like that. I want the white on the top. Now I'm going to give you some options. So as far as lace trim, you can choose white, you can choose black, you can do something very streamlined, or you can do like I did and you can just do a little extra. So this is the beautiful piece that I chose. Love it. I think it's very Victorian looking, perhaps a little goth. And I'm going to add this around the edge. Now I'm going to start in the back. Make sure that your edge is turned correctly too. There's like a thread running through here where it is attached, and you want that on the back. I want all the black side on the front. I don't want to see the stitching on it. So I'm just going to add a little hot glue at the seam on the back where the contact paper overlaps. And then I'm going to go around, cool temp glue, and I'm going to go around and add right on that line the seam up there on the edge of that beautiful lacy trim. Carefully continue around, and you know, protect your fingers. So if you need to put your finger protectors on to do this, surely do that, especially if you have a very thin piece of trim, because it'll go right through it and you will burn your hands, and we don't want that. All right, so I'm going to continue around till we're back to our original spot. Try to keep your line nice and straight and even all the way around. That's going to be the difference between being a craft and a beautiful piece of home decor. Overlap just very slightly, and then you're going to trim off your excess. Now the seam in the back is all going to go to the back of the candle, so you're really not going to see much of what's going on here. So don't worry if you don't do the most perfect job on it. Love the look of this. Now I feel like I want to add this little piece right on the top. I'll just measure it and cut it off. And this one's kind of like elastic. It's really kind of stretchy. It's really nice. So we're on the back side again, and we're going to add a little glue and go around right there. Now there's two pieces of lace and a solid piece of fabric in the middle, and I'm going to kind of balance it where the little meshy parts or the edge part are sticking up just a little bit, and this solid piece goes right there over the edge where the contact paper meets the beautiful satin ribbon. It extends the frame. It's going to make this lampshade look a little bit larger, and it's very elegant to me. Very pretty. You could use anything you want though. Anything you want. You could even use like if you don't want to use contact paper, you could even use a wrapping paper if you had something pretty you wanted to use. All right, so now our edges are nice, no bulkiness. We're going to add some pearls to this. Now I got mine from TEMU, but you can get half rounds anywhere. This came in a package that had several different sizes of half round pearls, and I'm going to use those carefully. Add a little hot glue, and then every other little piece of this trim that drops down, I'm going to sandwich just the tip right between two of these. So it almost looks like it is through the fabric or made into the fabric. So every other one, you could do every one. You could put little pearl pieces or beads anywhere you want to on this to give it a little extra flair. And I think this is so pretty. The end result of this is just really, really pretty. And just keep in mind, y'all, at the end of my videos is where you can get a closer look of all of the items finished. Now look at that. It gives a little weight to it. It's got that pretty little pearl edge. I really like this very, very much. So now let's work on the candlestick. It's got some damage here. It is wood, but it's got quite a bit of damage just on this part. So we're going to just clean this part up for sure. I'm going to take my little sander here. I've got, I think, an 80 grit paper, and I'm going to go right in there and take all that off. This is an old candlestick. You can kind of tell by the finish that some of the pieces that I get at the thrift store, they almost have like a shellac or a varnish on them, and they just don't sand as well as things do that are more recent. That's my opinion, because that stuff is really, really thick and it can be really hard to get through. Plus, as it ages, it turns that orangey yellow color that I just don't care for in my own home. But you know, make it your own. Definitely make it your own. That's what it's all about. So as I was doing this, I had thought in the beginning I would leave the cup on the candle here, but then I decided, no, let's just take it off. It is screwed down, and there's a metal cup that it is screwed into the wooden piece. We're just going to remove it, and then you can screw this right off. It wasn't even glued down. It was just screwed on. Then I'll take this and sand it all down too, because I want all of this piece to be the same finish. Go round and round and get all that off. Now to address the shininess here, I'm going to sand all of this to the point where most of this shine is knocked off of it, because that's where that yellowish orange is, and we don't want that there. For a Victorian look, I think a darker wood tone is going to be the better option. So I know that I'm going to use this tube as the light tubing, right? I am going to first need to make a hole in here that's going to fit over the original hole, or the original little peg that's up there on the top. So using a wide jumbo glue gun tip, I just made a hole, and then it fit perfectly on there. I'll flood it with a little bit of glue, and this is Gorilla Glue in this glue gun, and I will hold it there and let that glue set up. And that's going to work great for that. So once I have bit through the roughness and the orange on here, you can see it's still got a lot of shine in it, but we're going to take it down with this antiquing wax. I'm going to go completely all over this entire thing with antiquing wax. Now with antiquing wax, if you put it on thick and you leave it, it will dry that color. It will be perfectly dark, just like that beautiful rich brown color. But if you choose to make it a little bit lighter, you can wipe it back off before it dries. So you can apply it and then wipe it off, or you can use something like a wet paper towel, a wet cloth, and wipe it back. But you see how dark that was. It was perfect. So now a part of the video is missing, but what I did was decide how much length I would need to fit inside of the lampshade. And I'm cutting into this plastic and then cutting the little flaps away, right at the height that I think I would need it. This is easy to do. Just get your good sharp utility scissors or what you have and cut through it. You could probably use a utility knife here too, just be very careful. Alright, so I'm going to take the strand out. I'm going to take the little protector out of here. I've unwound my little strand of lights. I see how deep that tube is, and then that's how deep I want to make the loops of this, because we're going to be stuffing this down in there, and I want to make sure everything fits. So I'm just going round and round, using the last piece to measure the next piece. Round and round and round, back and forth until this entire piece fits in here. You can use cork lights for this too. Just keep in mind, the more light you have on your strand, the brighter your light is generally going to be. And these are LED lights. They do not have a big battery pack on them. Mine came in a 10-pack, I think, from TEMU. But you can get, fairy lights at Dollar Tree. But like I said, they're just not going to be as bright because you're not going to have as many strands in there. So look how bright that is. Now, I did make a boo-boo in the video, and the lights are not going to look as bright as they would look in the end piece because I accidentally left my lights on and they started to dim. They just don't last forever. And when you leave them on overnight, they get kind of dim. But you can see how this is going to look, right? Very pretty mood lighting. You're not going to read a book by it. The next project is going to be a wall storage piece. Very exciting. So you see my little thrifted piece here. We're also going to need paint brushes. I'm going to have a foam and a chippy brush. I'm going to need black paint. I do switch this over to a matte black paint. We're going to use walnut wood tint. We're going to use some type of a wax to seal it with. A screwdriver or a drill with a screw bit. And we're going to be using some sanding tools. These I took off another project I did, but we're going to use these and the hardware that goes to them. There are 4 screws total. Let's take a look at this box that I thrifted. This little storage piece. Very shiny, very orangey. Like I said, you can tell that this is outdated and it just needs a little facelift, and we are really going to make this thing come back to life. It's got like a brassy painted on cover. It's not real brass, nobody panic. We're going to start by removing the hardware. So just you're going to get a screw gun, or you're going to get your screwdriver, and we're just going to remove the hardware. I had somebody comment recently that they wished that I would use items in my videos that they could actually find. And I want you to understand when you come to this channel that there are going to be thrift pieces, and you are going to get some pieces that, you get from Dollar Tree and such. So what I'm telling you, these are not exact tutorials when I do these thrift pieces, because everybody's thrift store is different. What you find is going to be different. When you see these, it's for inspiration, right? Okay, just understand that, because I don't want anybody to come here and feel disappointed. All right, so now I'm going to go around here and clean it all up. We've removed the hardware. I'm going to clean it up. I'm looking for any spots on here that need to be possibly sanded more than others. I'm looking at removing my hardware. And y'all, I'm using a cheese knife to take this off. Why? Because it was available. It was available and it fits perfectly in the screw back, and it fits inside of the drawer, so I can take the hardware off. We're going to take this little handle off, and the handles that I showed you before, we're going to be adding one of those instead. So we'll put these aside because there may be another project we can use this on. These flimsy little, I think these are called sawtooth hangers, we're going to take these off. And in the end, you can put whatever piece you want on there, because you get to determine whether you want it to be upright or upside down. Can you believe you want to be able to use this project either way? So I'm going to sand this down. Now I started off with my hand sander. There was so many layers on here, y'all could not do it. I had to go outside and get my sander. But you see here, what we're focusing on is getting down in every one of those little cracks, every one of those layers. There are like 3 lips or steps on the back of this, on this trim, and I want to make sure I get into each one. There was the thickest coat of stuff in here. It was very difficult. So I tried to remove it as best I could with my sander outside. Then I used a vacuum, and now I'm going to use just a dry cloth to wipe that excess off. Then I will clean it off with a baby wipe and allow all of the pieces to dry. Alright, so now we need to fill this hole because we're not going to be using that anymore. I'm going to just take a little piece of tape and cover that hole on the back. You see, it's just covered, just a little painter tape. Then I'm going to use some wood glue, use a little stick, and go right down in that opening. I have a little piece of a dowel. Y'all don't know what this is. These little pegs, I think they're for furniture anyway, but I find them, like I said, I've collected so much of this stuff through my years of going through the thrift stores that I just have it on hand. I'm gonna just hammer it down into the hole just a little bit, just tapping it down. I don't want to split the wood or, you know, cause any problem. I'm using my little silicone spatula to remove the excess, wipe it clean. And then this wood is so, I don't know, the pores are kind of open. It's like a really light wood, but it makes a really good plug for this wood. So I thought it would be great. Just using my little cutters here just to cut this down as far as I can. I'll tap a little bit more, and I'm doing this gently, y'all. I don't want to dislodge anything or damage that drawer. Once I get it down as far as I can, I'll just tap it a little more, and then I can sand it down just a little bit. All right, now we're going to start putting on this wood tint. This is like a stain. Please put your gloves on. I've still got that stain on my knuckles from a few days ago. Yeah, it doesn't have the smell that a stain would have, so you can use it indoors. You can barely smell this stuff. I really like it. I've used it on a lot of projects. It seriously changes the appearance of your wood into something so much richer. You can already see how much darker this is compared to the way that it was, that orangey color, that honey color that used to be very popular, but I don't know, that was what, in the 80s probably? And that look is just not popular right now. That's not the thing right now, right? And we're doing Victorian, so we want to go back to that old dark wood, okay? So I'm using the sponge brush because I really want to get into those open pores of that wood where we sanded everything down. It's just going to soak in there and just give it that beautiful, rich, dark look. I've spray painted the metal pieces here and allowed those to dry. You can see that it's a matte finish. Lovely. I'm going to measure off and just put some little dots on here where I'm going to put my new hardware. I'll grab my drill, making sure that the bit is just a little bit larger than the hardware or the screw that's going to go back through here so that it fits in easily. I'm going to screw down into there and then put it in reverse and come back out that same spot. I don't want to split that wood. And then we'll do the other side. Be careful when you try to wipe sawdust away because you don't want to end up getting a splinter in your hand. Yeah, don't ask me how I know, but I know. All right, so we're going to put the hardware on there. We're going to screw these screws in. I just pushed them through the back and then put the handle on, and we're going to just screw that back down. I've got this little stubby screwdriver here. Look at my knuckles, y'all. Oh, I'm always covered in paint. Nobody's ever surprised when they see me to see me in paint. Now, nice. So I love that bronzy look. You know that I love that bronzy look. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know I love rich espresso. This beautiful, lovely color. I love putting it over black. I have done it in so many videos because I cannot get enough of this for my own personal look. It's just so pretty. But if you don't like the espresso, you can use a gold, you can use a muted gold, you can use brush gold, you can use a silver, whatever color that you want to use that is a metallic type color. Okay, you don't have to do it my way. Like I said, it's inspiration. I happen to love the warmth of it myself though, so I use it a lot. So you should know how to do this technique by now. So the chippy brush is what I'm using, and I go into the paint and then take most of the paint back off. Now I want to show you the difference. Do you see the difference in that? So now we're going to go over the other one, and we're going to do that. Try to get it as similar to the other side as possible. They won't be facing each other, they'll be facing away, so you won't notice that much. But again, if you're going for a high-end look, all these little extra details are things that don't take very much more time, but really make a difference in the look. So then I put them side by side and make sure that everything looks very similar. Beautiful, right? What a difference a little paint makes. So now that we've got everything stained and dried, all of these pieces are dry now. We're going to put the beautiful pieces back on the sides. I'm going to grab those original screws and we'll go right back in the same holes that were already there. All the way down. You don't want to over tighten. Okay, then I'm going to grab that other smaller piece, set that underneath, and put those back in. Nice. We'll flip it over and do the other side. Now I'm just going to go back over this with a little bit of that bronzy paint. You could also do black there if you would like to, so that that's not as noticeable. I also added another bar on the bottom, that little piece of hardware. You see where I added it? Now, if you put the drawer in this way, you can have this sitting on your table as a little organizational piece. It would be very pretty to put your books on or some decor on, which I'll show you in the end. Or if you want to flip this over, you can turn the drawer the other direction and hang it on the wall like this. Use it as a shelf. You can put something on the wide part of the top, and you could put something on the little bottom part. Now I'm going to use my own wood conditioner rather than using the other one. I will link the video where I make this. It is very nice, natural, easy to make, and it will last a long time. You see that beautiful sheen? We're going to add this on top of that wood. I'm going to use a cheesecloth for this, or a flour sack towel. You can get them at Dollar Tree, and cut them into pieces. I'm just going to kind of ball it up and put my fingers in there so that I have a way to apply it. And I'll go over all of that wood tint, all of the wood on here with this to give it a beautiful shine. Now we're going to do the whole thing, and then you can wait about 24 hours and come back in and just kind of buff it out with a little bit of, with a dry piece of cloth. Use lint-free cloths though. You don't want to use a paper towel for this because it will snag on any little piece of anything. You want to go over the entire thing, even the inside of the drawer, because you want this to look, again, high-end. You want it to be very pretty, a very nice piece of furniture that you can use for years. Now look at the dark beautifulness of that wood now without all of that orange showing, without all of that yellowish orange. I think that's made a huge difference on this piece, and I hope that you like it, and I hope that you feel inspired. Now I'm not going to do the inside of the drawer because that's just, nobody's going in there, right? Nobody's going in there. Think of all the things you could put on this as a shelf, or how you would decorate this if you set it on a tabletop. It would just really be beautiful. When you're doing this in the larger areas, be sure you're using like a circular motion, and then finish it off going with the grain of the wood in any areas that it is applicable. I love doing this. I love my job, and I'm so grateful for y'all who come to my channel repeatedly over and over again to watch my videos and give me support, because it helps me so much. And my level of crafting has changed so much from the years. It's more of, I guess you could say, artistry now than just crafts. And I'm so proud of the projects that I'm bringing y'all now. I put a lot of work and thought and effort into them, and I know that you can do the same thing. Our rose bundle canvas is going to be next. This is perhaps the easiest project. So this is a picture that I thrifted, and it used to be hanging in my daughter's room, but she's a big girl now. She doesn't need it. I'm going to take some screws. Some tools. I've got an awl, some things that I'm going to use to pull staples, and these beautiful clings that came from TEMU. 3 big pieces and bunches of butterflies. They are beautiful. This is not a sponsored video, y'all. You can get your clings anywhere. You can get wall decor stickers from Dollar Tree. Alright, so now we have to pull these out, and that's why I chose these little wire cutters, because they have a sharp point. I can get down into that and pull it out. So I'm going to pull out into the staples all the way around, and I'll use that awl to help when I need the help. I'm not going to reuse the canvas, so if it gets a hole in it, that's okay. I'm going to hang on to these original hangers for a future project. They come off easily and they attach easily. Just going to take them apart. They're in great shape. Then I'm just simply going to peel off that outer layer and we are going to use this frame. We're going to cut down a piece of cardboard, or if you have a piece of something big enough to cover the whole frame, you can cover the entire frame. But I want to go on the inside and we're going to do something special with the outside of this frame. So you can see the measurements here. I'm going to take those measurements and I'm going to go right down this piece of paper. Trying to make sure that I get it as close as possible, all the way down. Then we'll make a line across to connect those dots and get our scissors and cut this all the way out. All right, I'm going to use some little wood pieces here. These came from Dollar Tree. You can get them in a package in the Crafter Square. And these are going to be some extra supports that we're going to use so that we can flip our piece of paper or image or whatever you want to call it at this point over and glue it down. So this is the back side of the frame, and I'm going to put glue, a little bit of glue on each little side here. I ran out of glue in the other one, and I'm going to place it down in each of the corners. I'm laying it flat down on the table, upside down like I said, because I want to make sure that this is flat. It's going all the way to the table and in the corner. Don't use too much glue, because too much glue you're going to end up leaking down onto the table and it'll glue down to the table. All right, I'm just making sure everything is secure, and it is. And then we can flip it over, and each of those little pieces are going to be supports. I decided to add pieces right in the middle as well, so we're back to the back side, and I'm adding the little middle pieces to help hold this up and support it from the front. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces on there. I'm going to put the piece of paper on top. It's going to fit perfectly. And there'll be just an area here where we're going to add a little trim. I love this beautiful moss chalk paint. It looks great with the print here, the greenery in the prints. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this down on this. This is not wood. This is like maybe MDF. It's really a porous, soft type. I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to use a crackle method here, and I ended up having to distress this a little bit differently than just the crackle, because this did not perform like a crackle. But you'll see what I mean. You know, I tell y'all, there are things that happen in crafting. You're not always sure. Now we got sandstone and some Elmer's glue, a brush and a little bowl. You're not always sure necessarily. You just take a chance with crafting, and sometimes it's not what you expected it to be. Well, the crackle method didn't perform as well. Now, I've done crackle method before, and I've done it with Elmer's glue before. I have done it with chalk paint. So I'm not exactly sure what happened here, if it was just soaking in, where with a piece of wood it doesn't soak in as far, but it wasn't giving me the look I wanted. But I'm going to show you how to do it anyway in the event that you want to use the same method to do yours, because it turned out wonderful. It really did. So you put the glue on pretty thickly, and you're going to, as it is still wet, you're going to drag your lighter layer and your lighter color of paint across it, only going in one direction. Try not to overlap too much to get your paint down. I should have been using a chippy brush here, but I did not. We're going to go all the way around, and then I'm going to grab my heat gun, and I'm going to go over this to help it begin to crackle. Now, in the lightest spots, it did have a very light streaking of a crackle. No big crackles, but like light separation of the paint, and I just could not get it the way I wanted it to get. And I mean, I went over this thing drying it forever, but I couldn't get it to do right. So let me show you what I did. See, just a little bit, but then there's bubbled areas that just bubbled and they never popped. They never made a crackle. So I got my little, so you can fix it. I got a little knife here. This is actually a cheese knife that I use as a scraper in all my tools. Yeah, cheese knife, because I have small hands, it works perfect. And I'm going to go over here and just knock all of those bubbles off. I'm just going to sand or push right through them. I'm just going to go through them and chip it off. This is going to give it a chippy look where I have a little bit of crackle in here. I have some chippiness in here, and it ended up looking gorgeous in my opinion. But you know, you can decide what you think about this. Now, the reason I put this in a video with Victorian inspired pieces is because of the print that I'm using, because of the roses and the chain and the key that is on this. It is not necessarily something that is going to make a set with these three things, and I often try to make things that will go together well. But if you like the shabby chic or the lighter Victorian type things, then this project is going to be perfect for you. So on this channel, we want to make something for everybody, right? So we're going to show you everything that you could possibly do. If you don't like the colors that I'm using, use different colors. You could use black and gray and do it with black and gray, or you could do white under and black on the top, or vice versa. Use your imagination, take the inspiration, right? Now I'm using my awl and I'm just scratching it up and I'm pushing the point through in some areas to make it look just old and crackled. As much damage as I can possibly do on this thing, I am doing. I'm also going to take my finger sander and go over it in places too, where the crackles start. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I get the evenness and the look of this that I really like. You could also use a piece of maybe some wall decor that you could put over maybe a black paper. You know, just use your imagination as what you could do and how you could use this. And that's how it's going to look. Now we're going to also have to work on the sides, so we're going to address the sides here. I'm going to add the glue here so you get a closer look of how you're going to do this. Add your glue. Before it even has a chance to dry, this time I'm using a chippy brush. I'm going to streak some of that on there. Just trying to see if it makes a difference. If I go a lot lighter and with a larger chippy brush, it did not make a difference. It did the exact same thing as before. So we're going to go back and do the same thing here. All those little areas, I'm going to go over it with my little knife here and I'm going to scratch it up. I'm going to take the bubbles off, just sand a little bit, get that all, drag some lines through it. Make it look like this frame has been around for 100+ years. And now I'm going to go over all of that edging and just bite through all of the paint back down to the bottom. Now I'm going to choose a print that I like. I want to have a couple of butterflies in there, so I'm going to use this center print for this one. I'll grab those butterflies. I'm going to carefully peel this off. And now the good thing I've experienced is, see how it's rolled back on itself? I can easily, gently pull that up. Put it on the back of my hand. Now, I have very small hands, y'all. Wear a size 5 ring. If I can do this, I know you can. Okay, we're going to gently lift it. Then I'm going to find my center and then let that heaviest part or the middle part of that sort of drop down. And carefully use my fingers to push the key down or allow it to fall down. Just making sure everything's down. I looked up, there are no wrinkles or bubbles. And then if you need to use your ruler to press things in place, a wooden edge ruler will gently press these pieces down. I had no trouble, so I didn't even get to show you how to troubleshoot if you had a wrinkle. Everything went down great. Then I'm just going to randomly add my butterflies where I feel like maybe they want to be. Here and there, flying around. You see that beautiful key? That just looks Victorian to me. It also looks a little bit like Valentine's Day, so you could definitely use this for Valentine's Day. Alright, so now time to put that down. Look how beautiful the color of the frame looks with that. I love it. All right, so I'm going to use this cording that came from Dollar Tree. That's what I chose to go with it. I'm going to start putting the piece down with a little bit of hot glue on the blocks that we're using for support. I'm using hot glue rather than the cool temp because I want to make sure I have time to slide it if I don't get it in the right position. Press it into place. I'm going to lift up just enough so that I can reach my next pieces of support. And I'll gently put that down. Don't want to pull too hard. You don't want any relaxed areas in this either. You want this to be sharp and flat. So I'm just carefully going to just give it a little pressure on the end as I pull downward until it's glued into place. I'm going to grab that, I think that's like a cotton trim. I'm going to leave the end a little fluffy, a little boho looking. And I'm going to lay it down where we're going to be gluing it in place. Right in that corner. I know you can't see, but trust, I'm right in the corner with that knot. I'm going to follow the line here that is overlapping in between the paper and the frame. I don't want this to be a curvy line, so I'm going to keep it as straight as possible. Continue along until the entire side is done. When you get to the corner, you're just going to round that corner, add a little glue. Okay, then once you got the corner laid down, you can go ahead and do a longer line of glue. So how did everybody do through this little storm that we recently had, this snow and stuff? Did y'all have any damage? Were you stuck in your house? I know I have northern friends and southern friends here. We personally did not get any snow in southern Alabama. However, we did have like a icy mix, and we still have little icy pieces in the shady areas of my porch. My kids are thrilled because it crunches when they walk on it. You know, kids, easy to please. All right, so this is how it is going to look once you got it finished. I love the look of it. Here are the three pieces that we did today that are Victorian inspired, and they are also possibly Valentine's Day. Who knows? I'm thinking with the mood lighting here, it definitely gives a bit of a romantic look. It's our little lamp. I want to give you a big hand clap. If you have been staying with me in these videos that are on the longer side, I did do a poll, and I saw that a lot of people, and the majority of people, prefer videos between 30 minutes and an hour of my content, so I'm stretching it for y'all. Hope you stay with me through the entire video. I'm showing you here how you can decorate that little wall piece down there with candles. Look at the brightness in this. Look at that. Now, like I said, it's a little bit dimmer now because I accidentally left my light on, but you can see, you get the picture. You could even do 2 strands of lights in there to make it brighter. Here's the decor around that piece. This is, I think, a beautiful way to display your Valentine's or something in your room. You could also flip it over, put your hangers on the back, and place it on the wall and make it lovely. Think of ways that you can reuse things that maybe aren't typical or how you would normally see them. I find that helpful when I'm doing thrift flips. Look at the piece, see what you can do with it, see what it comes to mind, and then see what kind of a difference you can make. Give it new life. Somebody once loved it, and it can be loved again. Or something like that. Not exactly wood, but it's made to look like wood, so that's what we're going to call it. You can see the little writing on the bottom. I don't have a date on there though, but I thought the design was just beautiful, and it's all elevated and dimensional. It's kind of dirty. It's got a ring on it from maybe somebody had put a cup there or something that leaked onto it. So I'm just going to take an alcohol wipe or baby wipe, whatever. You can also use just a damp cloth and just wipe all over this. I wasn't sure how it would be submerged in water since it's got that little spot that's kind of peeling up. And to be honest, I didn't really know how it would take paint with that little peely spot, but it worked out better than anticipated. So once it is clean and dry, I'm going to take some plaster chalk paint, and I'm just going to start putting this thick paint all over it. Now I'm using a chippy brush. It's got long bristles, and this makes putting the paint down into all those little recessed areas a whole lot easier. I'm just going back and forth, up and down, and just kind of scrubbing it into those spots. And when it starts to look kind of bare, I'll go ahead and dip the brush back in the paint again. This has little vines on the side. It's got these beautiful little floral wispies right there. And look at all that detail. Just from putting the white paint, you can really see it. You could leave your project just like this if you would like, or you can do like I do and just distress it. Now, since we use chalk paint, you could wet distress with a baby wipe if you wanted to. You could use a sanding block, a piece of sanding paper. You could use an emery board or like a little, fingernail file to go around these edges. Whatever you have to do your distressing with, you can go ahead and do that. So here it is with just a piece of sanding paper just folded over, and I'm just going over all those little vines, getting in the grooves. I kind of want to get on the high spots and leave the paint in the low areas. That's actually how objects wear when they have paint. It's the areas that are on top that are easiest to be touched that get all the scratching. That's the areas that we love the most, right? So any extra details that you want to bring out, be sure that you go over your items just the same way. There's so many vases and water pitchers and decorative candles, things like that, that have these details that maybe don't have the color that you like, but look at the difference. This is definitely more of what I like. So because this is where I want it to be, I'm taking a microfiber cloth and a little bit of some clear wax, and I'm going to start going over the entire project. I'm just kind of using my finger to get down in the lower areas too, because I want to protect the surface. And I love the way that this looks. This is so pretty, and I'm so glad. This is one of my most recent Goodwill items that I've picked up, and I'm going to Goodwill today, by the way. But this is one of my most recent pickups, and I just knew, I could tell that there was going to be a lot of potential in this little piece. And it is just gorgeous to me. But yeah, think when you go to Goodwill, don't just look at something as it is. Look at the potential that it could have, because you would be surprised at the difference you can make with just a little bit of paint. So if you don't want something that's real complicated, and I know I've done sanding and paint and cleaning and waxing, but it doesn't take long, and it's chalk paint. Plus I have a little dryer that I use in between all my paint, so everything dries quickly. And then that wax just sets up on its own. You don't have to do anything else. Keep you curious, keep you learning. I believe in you, and I know that we all have creativity within us. It's just a matter of believing in yourself and tapping into that. Now, we're going to take this little pedestal, and it came originally from Target, but I got mine at the thrift store. I'm going to use some Mod Podge so that we want our paint to stick better. You can go ahead and spray some type of a sealer on the plastic first. It'll help better, in my opinion anyway. So we're going to go over with that same plaster chalk paint and go around all these little bumpy areas and every part of this pedestal. Now I'm going side to side with the paint and then up and down. I found that's the easiest way to not ruin your brush, but to get around all of those little spaces with the dots. See, this really clings so much better, and I only had to do one coat of paint with that sealer under there. I am a very proud Plaid ambassador, and I get goodies from them, so I like to try them and I like to give you the information. So if you enjoy crafting, you might want to check out Plaid. Alright, so I'm going to take my little pedestal and my Mod Podge and my napkin, one layer of it of course. I'm going to go all over the top of this with a nice even layer of Mod Podge. I'm going to lay this napkin down gently on the top and just kind of gently move my fingers and hands around. I don't recommend that you pull. I did that and realized that I shouldn't have, but I didn't damage it, thankfully. And then I'm going to use my little roller here to just press out any little wrinkles or bubbles. Now, there are going to be some wrinkles in here, and I'm not
I'm not bothered by that. So here are those scissors again. I'm going to use those to go all around my edges because I need to get close. I'm going to cut off as close as I can get with my scissors, and then I'm going to pick it up and trim it a little bit closer. I don't need all of this excess, and I don't want to sand it off, but you could use your sander if you wanted. But look how nicely just going around the edges with your scissors at a slant, it makes that edge. Now I want to start by sealing off my edges, so I'm going to use my Mod Podge here and just make sure that I have plenty to lay that down. It is not exactly perfect. My cutting lines are not exactly perfect, but they are perfect for me. They're perfectly rustic cottage, and I am good with that. Don't you just love what you do when you're crafting? I know I do. I love crafting. I love creating for y'all. I love sharing, ideas with y'all and giving you ways that you can save money while still making things that look wonderful in your home. At least I always set out to inspire you. So if you like this video and these creations, I'll appreciate a thumbs up. It means so much. So here's our beautiful little bunny pedestal. Isn't it cute? It's not food safe, but you can use it as a riser for whatever you want to use. Put your decor on it, or put a secured candle on it, or maybe 3 candles would be pretty together. The little battery operated candles. I love it. This one is one we already had in the house. It belonged to my mother-in-law, and it has seen better days. I think it was used for potty training, probably for the kids, lots of grandbabies. So I'm going to give it a new life because I think that it is precious that she had it, and I think we can fix it up. So after it's clean, I'm going to have some Mod Podge. I'm going to have my fabric here. I'm also going to have some white chalk paint, which you will see in a moment. You can see the color underneath here, so I'm just going to trim off what I need, and then I am going to paint it with this plaster chalk paint, just on the top. This is going to make that fabric pop. You see the difference there? It really makes it pop. So I've already put my layer of Mod Podge down, and I'm pressing this down with my hands, and then I'm going to roll it with my Mod Podge roller. I'm going to go all around the edges really well. Then I'm going to go back over it with the Mod Podge and lay a good coat down all over the edges, all over the top, and all around. But I'm not going to do the sides of the top. We're going to have that taken off. You see here how I did it? It's going to take a little while to dry, but leave it in until it's completely dry. You can even wait till the next day. And I'm going to take a sanding sponge with a coarse grit, and I am going to start shearing off the fabric we don't need. If you get enough of your Mod Podge on here, this will make the edges almost like paper, so it's a lot easier for that to come off. If you don't have sandpaper, you can always take your scissors or something like that and just trim it off. So I'm going to do this around all of my edges, and look how pretty this is. So cute. I'm just going to go back around and make sure there's no little frays here on the sides. It comes off easily with the sander. And then to distress this, I'm going to take a really heavy sandpaper that goes with my hand sander. But it's raining, so I can't do it. So I'm just going to use it by hand, and I'm just going to take nicks and chunks of paint off. I'm just going to go down to the wood surface underneath. There's actually like a cream color, there's white, and then the wood on the bottom. I'm going to go around there, all the way around the edges that would normally get wear, and then using a dry cloth for this, I'm going to take some of that wax, rub it in, and just lay it on thick. I'm going to put a good coat in there. I'm going to focus on all those scratches and just push it down into the wood areas. If it bothers you that the bottom is not, on your projects is not finished, you can go ahead and do that. But for this video, I didn't feel the need. And this is going to be used on my porch as a plant stand anyway. Alright, so look at there, my sweet husband brought me some breakfast. Continue around and then wipe off the excess. We're going to start with any type of a little candelabra, candle stand, candlestick, whatever you want to call it, candle holder. And then 2 of these little, I guess they're like a hard plastic chargers. Mine were all thrifted. All of that was thrifted. So be sure that your objects are clean. And because my trays were very rustic looking, I'm going to make sure that I use that same effect on the piece that's going to be holding those pieces together. So I'm going to give it a good dusting with my dry brush. Once I get it the way I like it, it's practically already dry. I'm going to use some super glue. Mine is the Fix All from Dollar Tree. You can use whatever type you have, and a little bit of hot glue. That's going to give you quick hold and long-term hold. I'm going to get above it, look at the center. Then I'm going to go ahead and get ready to put down the next one. So easy, put that aside, let it dry. We got all of these lovely projects out of things that were either forgotten, disposed of, not wanted anymore. And with a little imagination, we were able to take the things and turn them into something that we love. For the first flip, I have this cute little bird. This looks like a clock frame. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I have a little bird nest and some reindeer moss from Dollar Tree. I'm going to take this little nest, and it's almost made out of a really, really fine, like a vine or something, like twigs, so it's flexible, and I'm just going to kind of squish it down a little bit so it's more like an oval, so that it will sit down in this clock frame. I'm going to put this little thrifted nest in the little thrifted clock frame, and just use a little hot glue and press it to keep it down in place. I'm going to let it cool, and then to make it look rustic and cottagey, I am going to add some of this beautiful green reindeer moss. I do live in the country, as I mentioned, in southern Alabama, so we get a lot of this moss underneath our trees that grows kind of on the ground, and I think it's really pretty to add. It gives it a little extra texture, a pretty little element, maybe not so expected, and it's always nice to have something unique in your projects. So I'm just adding it here and there, just like it would grow onto our trees, until I get the coverage that I like. I like it like this. I don't want it to be completely covered. You can use little sticks or twigs, or you can use Spanish moss if you want to, and if this isn't your style, you don't have to put any of this on the outside of your nest. You could just leave it plain. I'm just going to place my little bird in there. He's got metal feet that I tried to pull off. They won't come off, but he fits nicely. Between his tail and his feet, he sticks down in that nest without needing any glue, so that means I'll be able to use him again, and I love being able to reuse my projects, break them down and use them again. So I'm going to take some of these little ferny looking pieces of greenery that I have left. They're really just scraps, and I'm going to add those around here and there over this metal frame. I'm using hot glue here. It's going to work fine for this project, which will be indoors, but if you want to put any of these projects maybe on your screen porch or outside, you want to use an adhesive more like E6000 or the Fix All glue, or like, something like that. Gorilla Glue maybe in your hot glue gun, just to make sure nothing melts away. I'm just going to continue to embellish this a little bit over the metal and a little bit over the nest. Now, you might not be able to find a frame by itself while you're thrifting, but that is totally okay. You can pick any frame, any clock, and just take the insides out. Usually it just takes a couple of screws, and then you can pull the whole inside out. What do you think about it so far? I could totally leave it like this, but for me, I love to keep adding beautiful little pieces of greenery and little pieces of flowers. And I'm not entirely sure what this would be called. I don't know if you call it a flower or not. They're just mossy looking things. These little tiny pieces of picks that I have. And there's no pattern. It's just kind of random. You just put it where you like it. You know how nature grows. When you're taking a walk, you see all kinds of stuff. And it's placed exactly where God wanted it to be. So I'm going to place mine right where I want it to be. We like to make our pieces our own, right? Now, to make it a starry night, I'm going to just add this little strand. This is cork lights, but you can use the little lights from Dollar Tree if you want to. I did thrift these lights, believe it or not, a whole package of them. And I'm just going to thread them through the back and press them into the front of the frame and just use a couple of little dots of hot glue to hold it down. Look at it when the lights are off, y'all. It is so cute. I love this. This is really cute. It'd be so cute sitting in a window. So here's our before and our after. I found this gorgeous washboard. I have had this thing for probably a year. It has some damage. The feet or the legs down there are not the same length. It looks like something has chewed away at it. Probably a squirrel in somebody's attic. I cleaned it up as good as I could, and now I'm just going to measure so that these feet will sit flat on the floor. Got to use the smallest or the shortest leg as a guide, and then I'm going to cut both of them down just with my miter box and saw. Gonna cut that on down, and then I'm going to sand it off so there's no splinters and it looks nice and finished, and you never know that there was any damage on those legs. Same thing, both sides. Get it nice and smooth. Okay, so I love the patina on here. I love that rust on there and the wear down all over the wood, but I need to preserve that rust so that it doesn't flake all over the place and that I can clean it easily. I'm going to just take some Mod Podge and another chippy brush here, and I am just going to coat this thing down. I'm going to get all in between the ridges, also in the little cracks against where the wood is. And then, because I was afraid that dust from the rust would smear a little bit, I saved that rough part for last. I'm going to just use my little tool here, my little heat tool, and I'm going to dry this glue. You can use a hair dryer. You can set it in front of a fan if you want to do it quicker, or you can just put it aside while you work on other crafts. Once it is dry, or close to being dried, I'm going to add a little bit of my antiquing wax into a cup with another chippy brush, and I am just going to swipe it back and forth all over this frame. I'm going to put it on the sides of the frame. I'm going to put it on the top of the frame. And I'm going to add a little extra attention to the corners and where the pieces of the wood meets, because that's where it would collect dust. That's where it would age normally. And I want to keep that look, you know, keep the look of it being aged. I don't want a solid color here. So I'm going to continue along, get right down in all of those little cracks. I'm not adding a lot of paint. Then I'm going to go back with a damp cloth and just wipe it down so that it smears all those ridges out and kind of softens the lines that I created when I was putting that on there. It just kind of blends it out and it looks so much better. Yep, this is a better look, I think. I'm just showing you again, be sure that you wipe down on the insides too. And this is the look that we have created. To put a hanger on the back, I'm just going to add one of these sawtooth hangers, a little bit of my Fix-All from Dollar Tree. I'm going to place it down approximately where the center would be, and then using a little hot glue, I'm going to give it some quick support right over where the nails would go and allow it some time to dry. So for the next part of this project, we're going to work on a little wreath. My pieces are all thrifted, all of the pieces you see and the wreath. I'm going to pull these apart and cut them into pieces that are fairly the same size and shape. And then I'm going to start placing them down into this wreath. This is one of those vine, I guess, wreaths, and so you don't have to use glue necessarily to hold your pieces or any wire or any other type of thing, because a wired piece of greenery or floral will press straight down in here and will hold itself pretty well. Again, if you're going to be using this for outdoors, you want to give it some more support. You want to use some glue, something like that, so that the wind doesn't blow anything away. But I'm going to keep these pieces inside. I really, really love the look of this. And then I'm going to add that same greenery that we used on the project before on the little clock. Bigger pieces of it though. And I'm just going to place it around my wreath until I get the fullness that I like. So I don't count here with doing this type of a wreath because I like the cottagey, rustic, wild look. And then I am just going to add in some more of those little green, they look like tiny roses, but that's not what it is. It's more like a seed pod of some type. So I'm going to add those all around. This is going to coordinate very nicely with our first project with the little bird. So I'm just going to fluff it out a little bit, and then any places that have a little bald spot, I'm going to take one or two little random pieces from the picks that I had left over, and I'm just going to glue those in so that it's pretty much symmetrical, you know. And then here's kind of a flat spot, so I'm going to add a piece in here. See, it kind of fills it out. Then these had some really pretty little berries, and I'm just going to add those in. And then I can just decide what I want the top to be and what I want the bottom to be, how I want it to hang. And I love the look of this. Nice and full and flyaway and wispy and rustic. I'm going to take just a hanger that I had off of another project. I'm going to push it down into there, and I am going to hot glue it. My neighbors are building a house next door, so if you hear a bunch of noise, that would be my dog barking at the construction workers. Okay, so I'm just going to take that over the back. I'm going to slide it straight down through where our hook is, and then pretty much in the center here, I'm going to add some hot glue and a little piece of paper or construction paper right over the back. You can just use a scrap, and that's going to hang it. And then you can just push it toward the center, and look at this little beauty. Now I can use this piece, and I've been hanging on to it forever, so I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to make something wonderful from these pieces. Love it. There's the washboard before and after. I found this little, I think it's a bill organizer or mail organizer, and it's really lightweight, and I love the look of it. It's pretty. So I'm just going to start by removing the little hanger that had seen better days. I'm going to take my hot glue and go along the bottom, because as you saw before, those little slats can move freely up and down, and I don't want them to do that. I want them to be locked into place. So I'm just going to use the hot glue right up against the border and the edge of those so that nothing comes loose. I've got my little skinny brush here. I like to use this on projects that have a lot of slats or like wicker type things and baskets, because they get in all of the cracks. But you can use a soft shoe brush, anything like that, to clean your objects, or you know, if you want to use Swiffer or something, you could. After it's clean, I'm going to spray it with this Rust-Oleum. I give it 2 good coats and leave it in the sun to dry. And I did leave it outside for about an hour to fully dry after the second coat. While that's drying, I'm going to look at my craft foam. You can get yours at Dollar Tree. I will end up using a white foam that I thrifted. These are some flowers that a friend gave me. She took them out of some greenery so she could redo her projects. So this is what it looks like painted. And now I'm going to use some burlap to make sort of a backing behind the little wicker crisscross there. I'm just going to measure about what I'm going to need for each of those little pockets, and then cut it down. I'm going to take a piece of cardboard, and this is from the one of the Dollar Tree calendars. I always save this stuff. It's perfect for projects, little extra things. I'm just going to kind of fold it and press down where I think I'm going to need to cut this and make it like a little guide. Then I'm going to cut out my piece, test it out to make sure it's going to fit in the little pocket, and it fits perfectly. I don't even have to glue it. Yes, I love it when that happens. Then I'm going to take my burlap and just begin to wrap it around this piece of cardboard. I'm using tape here. It's like a masking tape. I'm just using tape instead of hot glue because I do not want to burn my fingers off, and you will with this type of project. So the tape works best, and nobody is going to see it. I'm going to take the bottoms and kind of fold it like you would a present or a gift, and just add more tape. removing a little bit of excess. And this is going to hold it just fine for what we need. And this is what it's going to look like right behind our little wicker, our little crisscross, whatever that is there, whatever pattern. And I'm just going to press it into place. No glue required. I love it. See, we put those in there because I don't want my floral foam showing. So this is a perfect way to hide it, and it gives it, again, that rustic look that I'm always going for in my home. I'm going to take the block, and I just use the big one and cut it right down the middle with my ruler. And rather than gluing it and glue dripping all over my project, I've got some of these wreath pins, or I don't know exactly what they're called. You feel free to comment below and let me know what these are called. But they work perfect for this. I just kind of like straddle them over a piece of the wood and then go straight into the block, and it holds it perfectly. I'm going to take my longest picks for the bottom pocket and just start placing those in as is. So they have greenery on the bottom and they have a long wispy top. I love that. I think it's perfect for this project. They're so dainty, but they're full, and I love these. But you can use whatever flowers you like. I'm just going to continue around until I get it as full as I like, and I'm going to put some right down in the space between where the foam is and the side of the little pocket. If you want to use glue to secure these down just to make sure, then you can certainly do that, but you don't have to. They stayed very nicely for me, just like this. And then for the top piece, for that top pocket, I'm going to cut these down. I'm going to cut the greenery sections away from the flowers, just like this, with my little clippers. Don't ruin your scissors. Then I'm going back in with my pins and securing those to the back so they don't wobble around on the bottom and the top. Love these pins. I thrifted them, but you can get these at craft stores. They probably don't cost very much at all. And then once they're secure, I'm going to go ahead and go in with my flowers in the back. And for me, these types of flowers, there's really no particular pattern that you use. I'm just looking for equal fullness at the end. You know, I'm just putting my greenery in the back, putting a little bit of the greenery in the front, but I want the little flowers to be the highest section in this top section. I want them to be the tallest part. And I like that it's graduated, that I have the little short things on the top and that I have the longer ones on the bottom. Again, make this your own. That's what my channel is all about. Now I'm going to make a little bow here. This beautiful ribbon is a linen blend that I got from burlapfabric.com. I love to use this for bows that are kind of small because you don't have to do a lot of fluffing. There's no wire in it, but it gives a really pretty look. I'm just going to make a very simple bow. You saw how I did that. And then I'm going to make a few knots in the back to hold my bow together so that it can withstand a little bit of pulling and fluffing. And right over that spot that's missing a slat, I'm just going to tie it right down. And now you'll never even know that there's anything missing. Don't you love that? I love that. I love it so much. I'm going to do a double knot. Certainly feel free to add a little glue if you would like, but I'm satisfied that this is going to stay in place. And then dovetail your ends to whatever length you like. Had them a little bit longer originally, but decided that I would go a little bit closer to the length of the little basket there, or the pocket. And I wanted to add a little more greenery to the top of this bow. So I'm going to add 2 pieces of greenery and a little flower. Isn't this pretty? So to hang it, I'm going to just make a very simple little tie. You see? Very simple, just a loop. And then I'm going to use a little hot glue on the back, press it down and hold it in place. Here's the before and here's the after. I believe in you guys. I know that you can do these. If you don't have items that are thrift flips, maybe you don't have a good thrift store. You can always use something that someone has given you. You can use something that is on the side of the road. You can use something that you already have and give it a second life. So many options. I don't even know which one of these is my favorite, but I really like all of these. One, I found this gorgeous little window like frame at Goodwill. Unfortunately, they won't let me record in Goodwill because it's the Goodwill bins, so we're not allowed to do that for privacy reasons. So I'm just going to get right on into what we're making today. I've been redoing some of the decor in my bedroom to make it more of a cottagey look, and I thought this would be perfect on a display wall. And I'm going to start off with some chalk paint. You can use whatever paint you have. I'm using a chippy brush, and I'm just kind of slathering this on here. I don't want full coverage. I want this to be rustic because no matter how much my style changes, I just don't think you can knock the rustic out of me. So I'm going to keep putting this on here, and I'm just showing you how I apply it. I'm just dragging it back and forth. I'm letting it be lighter in some areas. If you feel like when you do this that your coverage is just a little bit too heavy, do not be concerned about that because I'm going to show you how to fix it. We're going to chip it up in just a bit and make it our own. Now be sure that when you're doing this, you get around the corners, and I want to get right inside of this frame as well. All those little inside corners and nooks and crannies need to be covered in the white. Now I'm going to take a very rough grit sandpaper and just start making notches and splintered looks and just grooves all into the paint. It just makes it look old and rustic. You can see how I'm doing it. I'm just dragging it back and forth on that paint, and it's just pulling bits and pieces of the paint off. Any of the areas where the bars cross, the corners, things like that, go ahead and work on those spots. Any area that would normally get a lot of wear, you want to be sure that you are really working on those pieces. Just like on this. You could use a hand sander if you needed to, if you wanted to. But just be very careful because they have a tendency to take a lot more off than we intend. See how I'm getting around the corners? You can get an idea here of how it looks. Now I want to put a hook on top because I decided that I wanted to hang a wreath on it. So I'm just taking this little hook, which later on I do paint gray. I'm just going to try to make a little pilot hole in there. I'm just going to get a little hole started, and then just like that, and right in the center, and then I'm just going to twist this down in here until it is flush. And there you go. So here is our frame before, and here is our frame after. I'm going to use this magazine rack. I love the bones of it. I love this texture on the side, these little panels. We're going to plug these off, so don't worry about it. They did come from the thrift store without any plugs, but I happen to have found at a different time some wood plugs. How about that? You never know what you might find in a thrift store. I've hammered those in. We're not worried about the little dented areas because we're going to fix it. I'm going to take my matte Mod Podge and then give it 2 good coats outside. Once it is completely dry, I'm going to bring it in and start laying on the paint. Now this is a dark, dark wine colored paint. And even with chalk paint, which is pretty thick, it took some work. You can see here that you can still see through it. But you're going to keep going. We're going to persevere. We're going to keep pushing on. Cover everything. Bottom, top, sides, legs, the spindles, handle. And then 3 coats later, here's that beautiful rack. Totally and perfectly cottage and going to look beautiful in my room. Wait till the end of the video when you see how I've styled it. All of these turned out really cute. I love this. I hope that you can find a magazine rack. I usually find them when I'm there. So this is the before and the after. Not completely what your idea of a thriftlet would be, but it is for me, and I'll show you why. So here is this beautiful picture. It is in a green color. I traded somebody some books for this at Goodwill, and that was fun because I really wanted it and she wanted the books. I'm going to take 2 picks of thrifted greenery and this beautiful fall pick. I think these are peonies. Are these peonies? I think they are. I'm going to cut these off. Do not be alarmed by the clashing of the colors, because I realize there are fall leaves on here and it is a very pretty Eastery green on that picture. We're going to fix that, and I'm going to show you how. So just continue to cut these down, clip, 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 until everything is off. I'm leaving those stems a little bit long because I'll be using these in another project, I'm sure. So all you have to do is pull off the greenery from these leaves. They slide right off the stem, and then what you're left with is a beautiful, creamy, peachy flower, which is perfect really for any time of year. Very easy. Some of the pics on here have cream colored flowers, which we're going to use, and some of the pics that were on here had like a green color, and we won't be needing those, so I'll put those aside for my fall projects. So anything that looks like fall, I'm peeling off, and this is what we have left. Aren't they pretty? Love these. So what you need to do with thrifted flowers is be sure that they're clean. Get the dust off of them. You can use a lint roller to clean them up. You can actually wash some of them in the sink with a little warm water and hang them upside down to dry. These were clean, so what I'm doing now is just using my hands to reform the petals, closing it up, making it look beautiful. And there was a little bit of like some glue on there, and I got the glue off just to make them look beautiful, because we want it to look high-end. We don't necessarily need everybody to know that what we have in our home is a thrift flip, right? We don't have to tell them all of our secrets. So we're going to start off by taking, I think this is maybe some boxwood. I got 2 of these and I was very happy. I am separating them so they're not squished anymore. A lot of times your greenery is mashed together. Just pull those apart. They don't grow mashed together in nature, so let's just fix it. And then once you get it in there how you like it, I'm satisfied with that, you can go ahead and start adding your florals. If you like something simple, you could leave it like that. Alright, I'm going to start with a big flower in the center, a flower on the outside, a flower on the other outside, and so on and so on. I'm going to have the playlist videos in the description box below, so be sure that you go check out everybody else's videos. And hey, in the comments, why don't you let me know where you're from? I would love to know. Come along with us and get inspired and maybe learn a few new things. We can save the planet one video at a time. That's right. We're going to repurpose things. That's good. Get in your craft stash. You know, maybe you don't have a good thrift store or what you would call a good thrift store. Get into your craft stash. Go and find some things that you already had. Maybe you've got a wreath that you don't want to use anymore. Pull it apart. You can make another arrangement out of it. Okay, so now I'm going to use some of these Dollar Tree clovers that I had left over from some other projects, and it just shows you how easy it would be to turn this into something for maybe St. Patrick's Day if you wanted to. It's pretty much all green, right? Just put some of those picks in there and you'll be good to go. Now I added these in here and I didn't feel too bad about it, because even though they weren't thrifted, I thought it was important to give you another idea. We want you to open your minds and think about ways that you can repurpose, and since I've already used this in another project, I'm using them again in this one. I'm just continuing around and making it look the way that I like for it to look. And then I remembered I had 2 of these beautiful peachy orange flowers left, these daisies, and I wanted to add those in here as well, and they really give it a nice pop without just jumping out at you. So I've just kind of put those across from each other if you look at it, you know, from the top. So this is what we have, and it looks so springy to me, doesn't it? It would be beautiful for Easter as well. So here's that picture in the greenery before, and here it is after. Here is the overview of all the projects that we did. And I believe in you, and I think you can make some of these. They were very fast projects. I got all this squeezed into one video. What do you think? And guess what? Another surprise is every single thing that you see in this video is thrifted, except for the little clovers we put in that planter. My lights underneath are thrifted. The burlap runner is thrifted. My backdrop is thrifted. All of the projects are thrifted. The bunny, the spindles, the burlap wrap there, the shawl or the scarf, all of my little eggs and the planter and everything was thrifted. How about that? I do Dollar Tree DIYs and thrift flips all the time. So if that's something you're interested in, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you know when I do all of my new content.